The Lord of the Rings, A Transcendentalist Tale by Cody Spicer. Now, Transcendentalism is a philosophy that first started in the early 1830s. Many of America's most acclaimed writers and authors, novelists, and so forth were part of the Transcendentalist movement. This includes Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson, both of them very prominent Transcendentalists. Now, there are 5 main tenets to Transcendentalism. That is of self-reliance, nature is divine, the oversoul, mankind is good, and society corrupts. Lord of the Rings and J.R.R. Tolkien. J.R.R. Tolkien started writing The Fellowship of the Ring in 1938, but it was not published until much later, about 1957 or so. His writings were heavily influenced by his personal life. For example, The Downfall of Numenor was inspired by a recurring nightmare he had when he was younger of a great wave coming and destroying all the land. His wife, Edith Tolkien, influenced the story of Beren and Luthien, who he based Luthien off of. Now, the first discernible Middle-earth fragment was in 1914, and that was The Voyage of Arendelle, the Evening Star. Now, even though Tolkien had somewhat of a disdain for America, because he was really a traditionalist, he was a Catholic, conservative, he was really traditional. He didn't like the new culture and stuff that was developing over here. He yet shared many views with Transcendentalists, and these views might correlate with the 5 main tenets, that of self-reliance, nature is divine, natural tendency of man towards good, society corrupts, and the oversoul. Now, self-reliance is shown most prominently through the One Ring. For example, Boromir, he is corrupted by the One Ring for the desire to defend Gondor. I ask only for the strength to defend my people. He tried to rely on the ring to defend his people and not himself. He relied too much on something else, and again, he didn't do self-reliance. Gandalf, however, understands self-reliance, and he understands the evil of the ring. Understand, Frodo, I would use this ring from a desire to do good, but through me it would wield a power too great and terrible to imagine. So he recognized that it's evil. Samwise also saw that the ring offered many things, but also saw through them lies. Wild fantasies arose in his mind, and he saw Samwise the Strong, hero of the age. With armies flocking to his cause, he marched to the overthrow of the Barad-dûr. At his command, the Vale of Golgoroth became a garden of flowers and trees and brought forth fruit. He had only to put on the ring, claim it for his own. Yet, but also, deep down in him still lived, unconquered, his plain hobbit sense. He recognized that this is not for him. He cannot trust on this. He cannot trust the ring. He has to trust himself. Ralph Waldo Emerson, in his writing Nature, said, "Every spirit builds itself a house, and beyond its house a world, and beyond its world a heaven. Know then that the world exists for you is a perfect phenomenon. What we are, that only we can see. All that Adam had, all that Caesar could, you have and can do. Adam called his house heaven and earth. Caesar called his house Rome. You perhaps call yours a cobbler's strait, 100 acres of plowed land, or scholar's garret. Yet line for line and point for point, your dominion is as great as theirs, but without fine names. Build, therefore, your own world." Samwise, it seems, took this to heart. As he said, the one small garden of a free gardener was all his need and do, his own hands to use, not the hands of others to command. He done self-reliance. That world of his was his garden. Nature is divine is also another point in Lord of the Rings. The lover of nature is he whose inward and outward senses are still truly adjusted to each other, who has retained the spirit of infancy even into the era of manhood. That is by Ralph Waldo Emerson, again from his poem Nature. Now Legolas, he reflects that in this saying, "This forest is old, so old that almost I feel young again, as I have not felt since I journeyed with you children. It is old and full of memory. I could have been happy here if I had come in days of peace." He's talking about Fanghorn Forest, of course, and it reflects what Emerson said. Makes him feel young again. Now, ENGs also, which are first introduced in the Two Towers, they're presented as the embodiment of nature in Lord of the Rings. They're the guardians, and they was created by the Valar, or the gods, to protect nature from those who would abuse it, such as orcs and other evil critters. Nature of man is heavily focused on in Lord of the Rings too. Tolkien seems to agree that the natural tendency of man pulls towards good, is shown through the temptations of Sauron and of his master, Melkor, who first tempted men into evil. Now Sauron, he tempts Denethor in The Lord of the Rings. He shows Denethor lies to the Palantir, as he says, "Do you think the eyes of the White Tower are blind, Mithrandir?" Because Denethor was once a proud, noble, and wise man, a wise ruler, but he was corrupted by the lies of Sauron and by what Sauron chose to show him in this Palantir. And this drove him mad and made him commit evil acts. Society corrupts. Now this is shown a lot throughout Lord of the Rings. One of the mostly is throughout that of the Calabeth, or the downfall of Numenor. After Ar-Pharazôn the Golden, during the Second Age, captured, way before the events of Lord of the Rings, captured Sauron. He was the king of Numenor, the Grace King. Well, he captured him and put him into as a prisoner. But Sauron, through his wiles, he worked his way up to chief advisor of the king, and he corrupted the people of Numenor, eventually establishing a devil-worshipping cult on it that worshipped his former master, Morgoth, or Melkor. They would do human sacrifices, all other kinds of evil, and they turned against the Valar, or the gods, and this led to its downfall. The faithful, however, survived the downfall of Numenor, because the Valar sent a great wave to destroy them, as I previously mentioned, which was inspired by a dream of Tolkien's. And they survived because they stayed faithful and ignored the rest of society, including the king himself. Even though they were persecuted, they didn't go along with him, and they continued to do good. This is also shown through Tolkien's unfinished sequel of Lord of the Rings called The Return of Shatter. It centers around an evil cult. It centered in the Gondorian city of Minas Tirith. And it proposes that evil is like a sheep. It can be cut down but it'll grow someplace else, particularly those of, as I stated previously, cities and where society is at, such as Numenor and Minas Tirith. Now, therefore, the tenets of transcendentalism in Lord of the Rings are as follows: self-reliance, shown through the temptation of the ring; nature as divinity, the Ents and the Forest of Fangorn, guardians of nature; man is born good, this is shown through the temptations of Sauron and his master Melkor; society corrupts, which is the influence of society leads to corruption and decadence. Now, also, which is presented but is not as big as those, is the theme of the Oversoul, because in the beginning, elves, men, the world, everything was created through what's called the music of the Aenir, which is just, the Oversoul. It can act as a Oversoul type stuff. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you, and have a good day.